All right, we're talking with Scott Scovill, author of Tenacious. So, Scott, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here today from the
Thanks.
great city of Nashville. So, now you've had an interesting life. So, take us back as far as you want to go and start from there.
I was born. That was interesting, but I don't remember that. So I guess we'll skip ahead a little bit. But yeah, I I wrote the book Tenacious because I think that I am a poster child, not for being the most tenacious, but maybe the most improved. So as a young man, I graduated bottom of my class in high school, barely, skin of my teeth, and then flunked out of college. I wrestled fiercely with fear of failure. And I've spent the past 50 or so years overcoming that and just on a constant journey to better myself. I've built companies, I've written a book, I release music and tour as an artist, and I love sharing my story. I love opportunities like this to share who I am so that someone can learn from the things I've done right and especially the things I've done wrong.
Yeah. Hey, so just to touch on the fear of failure idea here, real quick, even going back to like high school, do you think part of the reason you didn't do very well was you're like, well, if I don't try, then I guess it's okay if I fail. But if I'm
Yeah,
afraid to
I
try
can't
and then
fail.
fail.
If I didn't try, I can't fail. And, I could write a book on why all that is, but we'll just say I grew up pretty poor, and we finally had money for a psychologist somewhere around after I graduated from high school, and he sat me down with a diagnosis very seriously and said, "Hey, what I'm about to tell you is very real and very serious. Are you listening?" I'm like, "Yes, sir." And he said, "You have the most advanced fear of failure I've seen." He goes, "It would be easier for you to grab a hold of a red hot stove, hang on, and maim yourself than to actually try. Because if you try and then you fail, then that's the worst thing in the world that could happen to you. You're as dumb as people have told you you are." So I don't want to.
Yeah, that's
I don't want to.
interesting.
I don't want to call out a parent, but there was a parent that was kind of tough on me,
Uh-huh.
and yeah. So
Yeah. So I think we've all probably done had a little bit of at least a little bit of experience in that in our lives is just,
yeah.
if I don't really try, then I can't fail. So,
hmm
that's
Yeah.
I
But
think
guess
this
what? You absolutely fail. You end up at absolute rock bottom
yeah.
if you never let yourself try. And in high school, it doesn't feel that real. And when you get out into college and you're flunking out of college, you're like, well, wait a minute, what's next? Like,
Mhm.
and then I realized I was failing at life. So I was so afraid to fail at my homework that I set up these behaviors. And a few years down the road, I ended up failing at life and just an absolute rock bottom mess of a human being. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So after the high school experience, failing out of college, where did that take you to next?
I like to say I got lucky. Right place, right time. So here I was at rock bottom, which if you have a fear of failure, maybe rock bottom can be a useful place for you because you have nothing to lose.
Sure.
And just to put some icing on the cake, a girl I cared very much about was killed in a car accident. And I'm at this just awful rock bottom moment thinking, oh my God, my life is going to be less. And a tour bus pulled into the restaurant I worked at. It had a space shuttle on the side of it. I did not know what a music tour bus was. I just thought, man, wow, maybe these guys work for NASA. So I got all excited, ran to the front of the restaurant, said, sit those guys in my section. And I discovered that they did not work for NASA. They were the technical staff for the band U2. And
Huh.
this was right when Joshua Tree released. And it was just
Oh yeah.
music was like a religion to me back then. It
Hmm.
still is. And to just touch these guys that were like, they toured with you too. It was so exciting to me. And I asked a million questions. And finally, they're like, just come to the next show. And they invited me to the show.
Oh.
I went, asked a million more questions. And they said, why don't you come to the next show? And at that second show, the lights went out, the crowd went wild. I stood there in the dark and I had a paradigm shift. oh my gosh, this is what you're going to do with your life. You love music, you love technology, you love people, you love the idea of seeing the world. And this guy, Bono, he's trying to make the world a better place. This is it. And a moment after that, just thrilling moment, my heart sank when I realized to do any of that, I was going to have to try. But I was ready. It was the right place, right time. And I made myself a promise standing there in the dark with 15,000 people screaming around me that I was going to start trying and never stop trying no matter how much it hurt. And that has made all the difference in my life. I did manage to get on tour. I did it fairly fast. I did some absolutely crazy things to do that. I sold my Super Sport Camaro for money. I quit my 3 jobs. I quit the school that was flunking me out anyway. It's sort of like, you can't fire me, I quit.
Yeah.
And I moved into the back of my Subaru Brat, and I traveled around and followed you two from city to city and snuck in after the show every night and worked for free trying to finagle my way onto the tour. I lived in my car for 5 weeks, froze, sweated, slept, was just it was just awful. Drove all night from city to city. Did not get on the Joshua Tree, but made enough of an impression on some of them that they gave me some great advice. I followed it. And it took a couple of years of just, having anxiety attacks, breakdowns, finding somewhere to go hide and cry. Like, I just fell apart a million times over the next couple of years, but I didn't give up, and eventually put myself in the right place at the right time and was hired by the Rolling Stones. So it took me a couple of years, 2.5 years, no, 2 years, and I managed to get on that tour. And I zap forward through all that because that's not really the story. The story is that my goal was to get on tour, but what I actually did was teach myself to try and teach myself to be tenacious. And those lessons and those skills that I picked up have carried me through a life that I am now fiercely proud of. It's taken me from that embarrassment, not only to my immediate goal of I want to be on tour, but really to just having a life that I'm proud of, a life that's exciting.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back. All right, back talking with Scott Scovill, author of Tenacious. All right, Scott. So you finally got your big break. You got to be on tour with the Rolling Stones. So where did you go from there?
Well, that was a pretty awesome step for me. 21 years old, traveled the world with the Stones, went to 13 months, went to 22 countries. Like, it was a dream. I will say for the first half of it, I was still a wreck. I was still in denial that I was capable or deserved to be there. But I finally got over that and started having a good time. And from there, rolled to doing several other rock tours. But a guy named Alan Jackson saw a Paula Abdul show I did. His designer saw it and said, "We want that." And my boss moved me to Nashville to work with Alan Jackson. And it was the smallest act I'd ever worked for. I thought that was the end of my life. But he and I hit it off really well, Alan. I really enjoyed working with him. And a friendship developed, and I became his video director and creative director and designed all the visuals for his show and sat at the controls and ran them for a couple of decades.
Really?
The new Tenacious me was not afraid to try and do new things, not afraid to be the director. I could have just sat back and been the technician, which is what I was on the Stones. Mm-hmm. But I started realizing that when something scared me, if I ran towards it, I would have a way more interesting life than if I ran away from it. Mm-hmm. So I started running towards whatever was scary. I was like, "Ooh, be the video director, be the guy in charge of all that? That's scary. Let's go. Let's do it." And then I saw a need in the industry. There really wasn't anyone designing visuals for shows. There were video directors and there were set designers, but video was brand new to the industry. I'm old enough that video screens were brand new to the industry. And I said, there's really not a company that designs the visuals. So I took this idea to my boss and asked if I could moonlight and start one. He said, "No, you can be my partner and start one. I think you're inventing an industry." And we went on to do that. And I started a company called Moo TV, and we designed all the creative for shows, the visual side, the screens, what goes on the screens. That company is still going today. We've been voted best in the industry more often than not over the past 15 years. I think we've won it 12 of the past 15 years. And we're much more than creative now. We do hardware and all that. Have over 100 employees in that company. And it's very fulfilling. Like, I get to be a part of the creative. It's exciting.
Yeah. So you're not obviously MTV and music television was way on its way before you got into this. So you're not talking that. You're actually talking like the visual screens during live concerts.
Yeah, and the difference is, if you're a video director, you are conditioned to tell a story inside a rectangle. Mm-hmm. Here's the screen, and I'm going to tell the story inside the rectangle. And what people didn't understand is that the video screens on tour are a part of a much bigger story, and they failed to connect the performance and the visuals. Sometimes it's great to tell a story on the screen, but sometimes the screen should just be a backdrop. It should be flames or clouds or some overused metaphor nowadays, or colors, or it should be off, or it should just have one word on it that just means something. And as common as that is now, and as much as we see it now, you just didn't see it back then. Every tour had a video director trying to tell a story that, to me, was arguably competing with the artist as often as augmenting the show.
Yeah, like, people start watching the TV screen. It's distracting from, listening to the song.
Yeah, well, everybody watches the screens. Trust me, it's what I do for a living.
They're huge and
it's all they do. Like, first 10 rows watch the performer. By the time you get to 15 rows back, in a 300-row arena, they're watching the screens as much as anything, because here the artist is this big, and when you turn and look at the screen and their head is filling the screen, you really get to see the look on their face. And
wow. I think I remember the first concert I went to where there was a lot of big screens. It was a Toby Keith concert, a long time ago. But
what year?
Probably around 2003, 2004, maybe.
Yep, I think that was before us. He switched to us somewhere around there, but I was with Toby from somewhere right after that, I think, until he passed away.
Okay, so I remember I just remember one of the songs where he came out with that song, put a boot in your ass, and Tom Brokaw. And the video had a dog walking up and taking a piss on Tom, a picture of Tom or something like that. You know what I'm talking about?
That was actually great, and I cannot take credit for it. So you definitely saw before we took over. Yep, we did not do that one. Yep.
Back in the early days, yeah. So all this obviously brought you to Nashville quite a while ago.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so you stayed with Alan Jackson for a long time.
In your favorite interviewers, I think that this is kind of an everyman's entrepreneurial story. I kind of feel like I want to break away from that and just say that what's made the difference for me is looking at myself and going, I can see where the weakness is and I want to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And we could go forward with my story, but the real story under it all is just, and the thing that I would love for your viewers to hear is that don't be afraid to look in the mirror and see who you really are. Like I got help. I saw a psychologist. It's totally okay to get help. It's great to get help. And when that psychologist told me that I had a debilitating fear of failure, I used that knowledge as a tool to go after it and try and fix it for me. Mm. And I feel like I've continued to do that. There's even a chapter in my book called A Look in the Mirror, because I think it's so important to see who you are, to try and figure out and admit the things that are your shortcomings, even though it hurts, and go, okay, do I want to live with that, or do I want to fix that? Do I want to get better at that?
Mm-hmm.
And I really have dedicated, especially these last maybe 5, 10 years of my life, to just trying to figure out what the best version of me is and what I should be doing with this life. You know, you get to the
Mm-hmm.
second half of life, if you will, you're over 50, and you're like, what am I supposed to be doing? And I think the thing that's most fulfilling to me is just figuring out what's best for me and how to, and how to go after that. And when I see things that get in the way, fear that doesn't belong to me, I did a lot of time. I did a lot of PTSD stuff over some childhood stuff, and I had my business partner was killed. And that EMDR work was invaluable to me. And it's incredible the things you can discover when you're willing to look about yourself. That EMDR thing, I knew I wasn't quite right over my business partner being killed. I mean, it was a vicious crime. He was murdered. And man, the EMDR just sounded so spooky. And for your listeners who don't know what it is, it's you stimulate the left and right hemispheres of your brain. And you can do that with either headphones that make a sound or a light that moves back and forth. It's not hypnosis. Or I chose to use these vibrating paddles, and the left one vibrates, right one vibrates. And you just start thinking about something. And that just sounds so simple. And it doesn't sound like it would do anything for you. But that left and right hemisphere stimulation, it opens a door in your brain. I mean, within 5 minutes of me being completely skeptical of this therapy, I was so deep into my thoughts about my partner being killed. And within 10 minutes, 2 words popped in my head, and I could not stop crying. I couldn't even get the words out of what was wrong with me. And the therapist, who had clearly seen stuff like this many times before, she was just like, hey, take it easy. Just take your time. And I finally, after a few minutes, got those 2 words out. And I looked at her and I said, I lived. And she said, you have survivor's guilt. It's really common. It doesn't belong to you. We're going to fix it. And I carried these weird feelings that, the brain is such a complex thing, and existence is so poof that how do we even begin to understand ourselves? And I think the answer is with a lot of help, as I'm detailing here. But holy cats, what was wrong with me that I would have never found on my own was that I felt guilty for being alive because my friend and business partner died. What the hell is that? And yet, when we resolved those feelings, I felt free. I felt better. I felt more like me. And I think that's, if there's a message I want to give, we could talk about my path, but there's so many paths to entrepreneurial success.
Mm-hmm.
I think my personal success is what's more exciting to me, in that I personally have succeeded in better understanding me throughout life and fixing some of the misplaced feelings. And that's what's exciting to me. And all the other stuff comes with it. When you do that, you become a better entrepreneur, a better partner, a better whatever it is in your relationships in life, and a better friend to yourself.
Yeah. It's something, most veterans can certainly relate to. I think, in the civilian world, well, civilians go through transitions and life transitions all the time, of course. It's
Yeah.
not usually a surprise, but there's this, we talk about the transition out of the military all the time on the show. And
Yeah.
the reason why is it's a formalized event that's going to happen to everybody that's in the military. And
Yeah.
your transition out, getting out is very important to your failure or success. And
Yeah.
it's always a struggle because the military, most people went in the military when they were really young. They've grown up in the military. Now they're leaving, and
Mm-hmm.
they lose their sense of purpose. They lose the
Yeah.
camaraderie. They lose this lifestyle that they've become accustomed to, and
Yeah.
they're almost basically starting over. And looking in the mirror, and it's a forced transition that's going to happen. And
My
and all the things you're talking about, and of course there are a lot of folks in the military have experienced PTSD and trauma and last 20 plus years of
Yeah.
combat operations and everything. So yeah, it's all
Well, my chapter, Look in the Mirror, my guest, every chapter in the book has at least one guest, and there's people like Alan Jackson and Brad Paisley and Peter Frampton and some astronauts. My chapter in Look in the Mirror is a Navy SEAL, 17-year SEAL, career military, and man, he talks about his PTSD and how hard it was when he transitioned out of the military.
mm,
Um, and Jason Henderson, a great friend and a great human and a great defender of our country and our beliefs. And not that his beliefs aren't an evolution, right?
mhm.
As are our countries, it would seem. But he talks about how hard it was. And in the next chapter, I talk about psychedelic therapy, which was huge for me. And he is my guest again. He's the only one that's in two chapters. And he's my guest again. And he talks about how psychedelic therapy made a massive difference for him and really saved him. He did Iboga. I think it's also called Ibogaine, right? And something I've never tried. But he went to Mexico and did that and did DMT. And huge transformation. And I personally have done psychedelic therapy supervised with a doctor and a nurse, like in a real facility. And it's made a huge difference in me and my ability to see myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say to any of the veterans who are struggling with that, and it's becoming more widely accepted. This current administration wonderfully is very open to exploring Iboga, and it is becoming it's legalized now in Texas. Tennessee's well on its way. Not legal to just go to the store and get it, but it can be prescribed, and they can do some great work with you with it. And man,
What
don't.
is it? Is that the name of the plant or what is it
Yeah, it's the
exactly?
plant. It comes from Africa, I believe it's a root. I don't profess to be an expert
Yeah.
in psychedelics. I am an expert in my experience with them. And so that is one I've never experienced. It's really more for heavy trauma, which might have worked great for me, but I feel like I've resolved it using the things that I've used.
Mhm.
It's tough on you. He said, Hendo said it's the hardest thing he ever went through.
Oh, really?
And that's really saying something for a top tier Navy SEAL, 17 years.
Yeah.
Like he's been through some things, and he said the hardest thing he's ever been through was that.
Okay. Like the actual therapeutic process.
Yeah, he said it was just 12 hours of torture, physical torture.
Really?
Yeah, like throwing up and
Oh,
felt like he was breaking his bones. He was throwing up so hard and tearing his muscles and begging for mercy. And he's like, he's almost everything in my life's been easy. He goes, I'm just wired to where Navy SEAL training was easy. And every tier, all the way up to top tier, was just not that hard. And he's like, those 12 hours with Iboga was hard, but he feels like it saved his life.
wow.
I have two other friends that have done it, and they both were very seriously traumatized people. Both were suicidal, and they were like, "Well, if it kills me, it kills me, because I'm ready to die anyway."
Mm.
And one of them it fixed, one and done. And Hendo did it once, and he's done. The other guy, it took a few swings. It did nothing for him the first two times, other than make him deathly ill. But because he was ready to end his own life, he said, "Well, I might as well keep trying." And the third time, something clicked, and he's a changed man and someone that's had a tremendous positive effect on many other lives he's touched since. In fact, all three of those gentlemen, Hendo stands up, talks, does a lot of things to give back to his community and people, and
Mhm.
and these other two gentlemen who I don't have permission to name them, but they're
Mhm.
just tremendous humans with a lot to give, who were at wit's end, and a psychedelic session turned it all around for them.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I've heard I've had guests on the show that have talked about it, um, various
Mm-hmm.
forms and fashions. I know another. real common thing. You hear a lot of people, microdosing.
Yep.
This
Yeah, I do that.
psychedelics, microdosing, like
Yep.
almost such a minute amount. You don't get the
Totally
psychedelic effect from
subperceptual.
it, but
Yep. I had to think about whether or not I had mine today. I forgot them. So you've reminded me. I'll go get something. I'm on a 3-day rotation, 3 different substances.
really,
Yeah.
huh?
Because they make your brain fire in different ways. So one day your brain, it's just sort of gymnastics for your brain.
Yeah,
Opens up different neural pathways and really healthy for the brain. And
and
it's
then
perceptual. You don't feel high. You don't feel weird. You don't feel anything. If you do, you're doing too much of it because you don't want to change who you are in the moment. You
mhm,
just want to be the healthiest version of you can be.
right. And so like people can do some of that for like a certain amount of time and then stop. It's not like they have to always keep doing it to have the therapeutic effect.
No, no psychedelic is remotely addictive. None.
Interesting.
Yep. In fact, that was my biggest fear when I did my therapy was that I was going to end up addicted. My father struggled with cigarettes and alcohol, and I was like, man, I've been my whole life in the music business. So I don't do drugs. I'm not doing this. And they said that you not only will you not be addicted, but you'll come out of your experience and you'll probably say that was the best thing I've ever done for me, and I never need to do it again. And I go, but okay, but how many times have you done it? And he goes, oh, I've done it a lot. I go, well, what happened to that? Never going to need it again. He said, well, about 3-4 months later, you go, you know what I could work on? I could go back in and work on this. And man, that is exactly what happened with me. I did it once. I was incredible. It was to me, the greatest thing I've ever done for myself. And I'm like, but I'm fixed. I don't need to do this ever again.
Yeah.
It's expensive. I don't need to mess with it. I'm so perfect. And about 3 months later, I was like, I'm not that perfect. And maybe I could work on this. And I do about a session a year nowadays. But that first year, I did 4 sessions.
Huh.
And really had a breakthrough after the fourth one, and then shifted over to about every year I do something, maybe
Really.
twice a year if I do something light.
And what is the substance or what is it?
So most of the time I go to a facility that, interestingly enough, won't tell you what they're giving you, uh, which made it
That's
extra
funny.
scary for me my first time. And I kind of thought, well, we all know there's like 7 psychedelics, right? Like you're going to get, there's LSD, there's ayahuasca, there's mushrooms, there's whatever. You can name like 7 things. Well, what I found out later is that there's well over 200 types of psychedelics.
Mm.
Now that we're manufacturing out, amalgams of them and things like that. And I really don't know what they gave me, even after going several times. And I will say it's not one thing. They give you multiple things, and they give them to you in a rate so that they all kind of crescendo at the same moment.
Huh.
So you have this moment where you, boom, get hit with all of it. And I think I took 3-4 different things, and it's hard to know because there can be multiple things in one capsule. But man, that moment when you're all of a sudden not, your whole world explodes is a really wild experience and very scary. But within 10 minutes, I settled down and was very coherent and did some tremendous work on myself for the next 5 hours and 20 minutes. And yeah, so I don't know. I can tell you, in other things, I've done mushrooms before, and I've done a little bit of LSD in other controlled situations where you do a therapy session and it's designed to open your brain up and make you think differently. I've done ketamine sessions just to explore. It's just interesting to me. Like, why not? Why not explore? That's kind of why we're on this earth, right? Like, let's
Yeah.
live, explore, learn,
Interesting.
share what we've learned.
Yeah. Hey, so your book Tenacious, where do we
Mhm.
find it?
Everywhere. Thanks to the good people at Simon and Schuster, it is everywhere. Thank you, Simon and Schuster. Forefront Books published it. Simon and Schuster does distribution. It's on Amazon. It's all over. But you can go to tenaciousbook.com. That should be sort of easy to remember. tenaciousbook.com or scottscovill.com, and you'll find links there. But I would love to hear what the readers think. You can find me on social media by my name, And yeah, I love hearing from people. I love getting those messages that, man, hey, wow, your book made a difference in my life. To me, that's like the greatest currency. So
Awesome. Well, Scott, I like to always give the guests the last word. You know, if you're talking to somebody that's in some various form of their military transition, whether they're about to get out or already got out and didn't like where they landed, looking to
yep.
get into business, entrepreneurship for themselves, what kind of advice comes to mind?
Yeah. Look in the mirror. So what makes you happy, right? Like in the military, you do a lot of what you have to do to
Mm-hmm.
satisfy the next. There's a chain of command, and
Mm-hmm.
that chain of command is very solid. And so you know that you need to do this to satisfy this. You're out of the military, and the thing you're going to satisfy, the this, is now you and your heart with the one life you have. Spend a little time thinking about what would make this happy.
Awesome. Sage advice. All right, Scott. Well, thanks for sharing your story. Appreciate it. And
Yeah,
look
thanks for
forward to
having
seeing
me,
future
and thanks
success.
for listening to all the listeners out there. I hope you learned a little something or had at least a good time.
You bet. All right. We're Oscar Mike.